Hello, if I'm not mistaken, also the YouTube stream is now live. We will very shortly start officially. Uh, do you feel welcome to join in the Zoom as well if you have more questions? Unfortunately, we don't have possibility to take questions through the YouTube stream today, but happy to have you, whether in the stream or in the Zoom. And now I think it's 4 p.m. local time in Finland. So I will open the meeting. Uh, besides me, we have here Ed Manla. Welcome, Ed, as our second host. Uh, I just quick. So this meeting is being recorded and streamed to YouTube. My name is Miikka Solmela, also it says René Roner, don't mind that. I'm the Executive Director of the Robot Framework Foundation. And today, with Ed Manla, we're gonna talk about community survey. So we had a community survey earlier this year, February, March, and now it's the results time. We have roughly 1 hour here. Also, the meeting is scheduled for an hour and a half, and we will definitely also have questions from you. So do interrupt at any point of time. If you have questions, if you want to look at some results in a more detail, or just overall you don't understand something, it's always fine to open your mic and ask. It can probably also check a little bit more on the chat if you want to write something, but unfortunately only have one screen today. Do you, Ed, wanna introduce yourself quickly before jumping more in?
Sure. My name is Ed Manlove. I've been using Robot Framework for about 15 years now, and have done a few different things in the community. But I've been helping participate in this survey since we started it about 3 or 4 years ago. And so have kind of helped use the survey and been interested just also as a community member and as user, kind of what other people are thinking about, what other people are interested in this area. So happy to join.
Awesome thing. Good. Then I think you should start seeing some stuff in my screen as well.
Yes.
Uh, so we have here community survey results 2025. I have very small window here. I guess that's enough. Maybe quick question before we get started. Have people who are in the stream or here in a Zoom call, have you taken the survey?
Yeah, I did.
Good. Then you know what we are talking about at least. Uh, so this is a very long report of 50 pages. So we will definitely not do a full walkthrough, but we will have a little bit jumps here and there of this document. And again, feel free to ask more questions or stop us at any point of time. But it will be more of a top-down, quick summary of the results, doing a couple of highlights here and there. And let's also try to leave a little bit of time in the end to have some more open discussion. About the survey itself, so we had some 130 participants. The response rate is okayish, but at the same time, we really don't know how many users we actually have because this is an open source tool. But if we presume that there is a million robot framework users, and that would be kind of a representative sample, then it would be 95% confidence interval. But at the same time, it is likely that the sample of the 130 people does not represent the whole user base, but the more active part of that. So what we can say for certain for results, they represent the opinions of these 130 people. Whether it's representing the whole community, maybe not, but at least it gives some indications to what directions we could go on. and what opinions, let's say, the more active part of the community typically have. Before going into more sections, just a couple of key kind of insights. So typically people do like a lot of the ease of use with robot framework, flexibility, broader ecosystem that we have, keyword-driven approach, reporting and logging are also always mentioned, and extending with Python. A couple of areas of improvements that people have wished for are AI support, parallelism, reporting dashboards, and more support for under-maintained libraries such as APM library or image horizon library. Yeah. Then few other sections. So we have tools and ecosystem, community and participation, and foundation. So maybe still about the community participation. So people generally find our community very friendly, supportive, and motivating, especially for the contributors. Why people maybe not contribute is typically lack of time, confidence, or clarity how to get started. So there are some barriers for beginners, especially. About the foundation itself, so the Robot Framework Foundation is the entity maintaining and developing robot framework, so funding that development and the whole ecosystem around it. The NPS, so there's like a typical score that you use in a market, and anything below 20 is typically used. Perceived very good. So based on responses, the foundation members perceived the foundation activities very positively with NPS 56, and the people who are not members perceive still very positively with 21 of NPS. So that is a kind of like a, I would say, ballpark figure, like how are we doing? And based on that, foundation is doing well, but there is still some kind of a clear communication of what are the benefits, what are the activities, and kind of how can we do better with the foundation outreach overall. Couple of recommendations overall. So still expand visibility and outreach, especially trying to engage with new users and trying to find ways for extend the core contributor circle, lower the contribution barrier. So still more video walkthroughs, more kind of guidance for first timers. We can always do better there. Then prioritize ecosystem stability and modernizations. So mainly meaning like continue developing active libraries like browser library, but also giving more love to some of the under maintained libraries, and also like doing more into modern technologies like AIs and, well, maybe not that modern, but still dashboards. That is, by the way, some nice advancements in those areas as well. Because there's still a little bit old data as we are now in June, and there is, for example, from Tim Crew, nice dashboard that is openly available and so forth. Anyway, the fourth point here is clarify and amplify the foundation's role, and I guess that's a always valid point. We wish we could be more visible, more loud. Few things still about the background. So there were 4 main sections, followed by a couple of sections about the foundation, depending on what kind of you answered, whether you are a member or not, you were going through a different path. And again, the responses should be taken with a kind of pinch of salt, or some responses even with a higher pinch of salt. And this report has been, or ChatGPT has been used to generate this report, so spot patterns and write some answers based on those patterns. Any questions for now before going more into detail, or if you yet have any points?
I think mostly I want to all talk about things when we get down to the foundation section of how we kind of made that different. But I think that's a good overview. So if anybody had any questions about the overview, well, we welcome them.
I have one question.
Yes.
Do we know from where most people arrive towards answering this survey? Do we have an idea of where they came from or where they were directed from?
No, we do not collect such data.
Okay, that's fair enough. Thank you.
It's anonymous, so we don't know, and we also don't know like even paths like from Google or Slack or wherever.
There is a timestamp on the entry, and I think I looked at that briefly. And I know that, part of our yearly schedules, this comes out around the Robot Framework Conference or RoboCon. And so I think we do get a fair amount of surveys through there. But some of the introduction things will show you a little bit about who the survey takers are and a little bit of information about them. So that might also come out in those. Well,
Okay. Thank you.
Correct. Some background information that we asked from the participant or kind of survey attendees. Is this big enough for you? Can you see more or less? I unfortunately also cannot make much bigger, but
It's fine.
I will also talk. So anyway, just some background information. Most respondees were men, so that would be 80%, roughly similar to last year. Also, the pattern of how many years in kind of test or automation or RPA testing overall you have is fairly similar with kind of a bit more experience this year. So like let's say a little bit more emphasis towards the more experienced ones, but still fairly similar patterns. Like 30% are more than kind of 10 plus years, and then we have some 22% with 5 to 10 years. So we can already say that more than 50% have been using or have been in the field for a very, very long time. Then there are some newcomers with the smaller slice. And most people also have been using Robot Framework for quite a while. So here it's not as long, obviously, as in test automation or in the field, so to say. But even here, we can say that there's a sizable amount of people who have been using Robot Framework for more than 5 years. So that would be something like a 40% roughly. Then question about how many or how frequently use Robot Framework for various purposes. So most people use it for work, and most people use it almost every day, a similar pattern to last time. There is still many people using it for hobby as well, and some other purposes, but work is the main thing. Then the role of the respondees, so most are test automation engineers. That is same as last time, like 55%. Then the next biggest categories are QA engineers and test managers, so very test heavy people. In which ways is your business or you invested in a robot framework? So here we can also confirm the previous kind of results that 92% use it for testing. Interestingly enough, also 43% use it for RPA or automation in general. So almost roughly half of the respondents use it then for both, or let's say at least for RPA and then most likely for testing as well, because it is overlapping. You can choose multiple things. Many use it internally, roughly 1/3, and also almost 1/3 use it kind of for their clients, so as in consultancy, and 10% use it as part of their own stack. Good. So a little bit still on the background. So if we have decision makers in the kind of respondees, do they play a role? Here we haven't defined per se like what kind of a role. Obviously, there can be very different kind of roles, but most people say yes. So that's 2/3. That I guess tells more about the cultures of the companies, that maybe those testers, as most people were testers, can actually affect the tools that you use in the company, and not necessarily as much of that they are C-level or necessary leaders per se. Then participation in the survey. So roughly 31% have said yes, that they have done it previous years. That has increased to 3x from last time. So I guess it is getting more frequent responses, but still it's a very sizable part, more than 50%, who have not taken the survey last time. So also comparing year-on-year results, you have to understand that it's a different group answering and not the same group. So also some deviation in answers can come from there. Now, moving on from background to robot framework tool and ecosystem, unless any questions on the background.
I'll just note one thing I know from mine. Part of my review of the surveys, I'm always surprised by what I consider to be the large number of decision makers, or people that can affect the decision on the tools. That was just, to me, something striking that I've noticed in this survey of who we're kind of reaching with the survey and who's kind of coming back to it, is that's always as someone who's been a decision maker myself in a company, and the idea about using robot framework and then all the discussions and questions around robot framework, that seeing that the number of people who respond that do say yes, we do have kind of decisions in the tool, is kind of interesting in the sense of it kind of flavors a bit of how I see these results.
Yeah, thanks, Ed, for sharing. So moving on. So how relevant is robot framework for your daily work? 72% say it's highly relevant, and 22% say it's fairly relevant. Or similar figures to last year, so no sizable changes there. So at least in our survey, the people do find it useful. This is a word cloud, but about what brings most value, what functionalities, features in robot framework brings most value to the people. We could try to grasp it in a screen. I guess this should do. So here it is a word cloud with no kind of cleaning done, meaning that if you, for example, answer something like a browser library or Selenium library, you see library as one big word, and then Selenium and browser are kind of 50% of the big word, if that makes sense. So there is no weight, it's just pure words. So here you can see that the libraries are very big one. Testing, easy to use, keyword, Python keywords, simplicity, control, flexibility, logging, automation, natural, I presume language, but still, integrations, community. So a lot of things, but you can see from the kind of biggest parts that it is easy. There are some libraries and so forth, keywords, languages. So that brings some ideas, but kind of in the summary of it, ease of use, keyword-driven approach, extensive ecosystem and libraries, reports and logging, extensibility and customization. So that was a free-formed field where people could write kind of what is valuable for them, and this is like a rough summary of that. Oh, sorry, it was continuing to list. So also flexibility and testing scope, tooling and integration, community and documentation. So also those were frequently mentioned. Any questions? If not, then the next question we had was about whether robot framework is good, or kind of how strongly do people agree or disagree about the following things. sorry, this is very suboptimal, but I have the questions here because it breaks down. So the first one is that it's easy to use. So most people do agree it's very easy to use strongly, or at least agree that it's easy to use. Whether it allows complex tasks to be solved easily, and most people here very much agree. Some are more neutral, some are more strongly feeling that is very good with that. Whether the current development of the robot framework core is heading to the right direction. Here we have an agreement and then a stronger agreement that is ease. There is still some neutrality, but most people do feel the direction is right. Then it is the statement, it is moving more towards programming language syntax versus natural language syntax. And here we have a lot of agreement. Also, most people are actually neutral about it. And if you look compared to past year, there's a small shift there. I guess that can also be due to the fact that there hasn't been much of this programming language syntax or kind of not that much changes compared to kind of what there were a couple of years ago. And then it should move more towards programming language syntax. So here we see a really kind of a Gaussian, like a bell curve almost. Like most people are neutral, some are feeling more, and some are feeling less strongly about going that direction. So that is also a little bit of, let's say, slightly more neutral than before, based on this one. Especially if you kind of compare it to 23, but again, different years, different responses and so forth. Good. So what functionalities features should be further developed with robot framework? So AI, natural language features, some capabilities, that direction, probably outside the core, but still important stuff. Picture reporting and dashboards, parallel execution and concurrency, easier integration and extensibility to like different languages, for example, like Java, core feature improvements. Well, these are just single comments sometimes, so also don't take it too seriously, but kind of typically it can be even a couple of people saying a similar type of thing. Browser and web testing enhancements, built-in support and more use cases, especially for the embedded, game testing, image recognition, so recognition, so all kind of things. Reusability and test structure enhancements, improved configuration and setup, and then, well, keep simplicity as priority, so not to make the core overcomplicated. so some of these things make a total sense. Some of these are even a little slightly bit, how would I put it, against one another. So at the same time, adding more stuff can make it more complex, and yet we still aim for simplicity, but maybe it's outside the core.
And something, oh, I was going to say, yeah, Miikka, I almost called you Renee there for a second because I was looking up at the screen. You know, I saw the question, and the first thing it said was, you know, improvements in the core. And I think, you know, one of the interesting things is you start to see when people talk about their uses of robot framework, you know, people do confuse what the core is. And sometimes, you know, I think I'm not worried that people aren't understanding that complexity, because I think really, you know, when people start to use robot framework, they're talking about their whole usage. You know, it doesn't matter if this functionality comes within what we would call the you know, the software core of the language itself, or if it's just something like the reporting and the dashboarding and all the things, even if it's like setting up my system and my test, you know, configuration, you know, those are important to their goal of using robot framework as a tool. And so I think, you know, one should not necessarily differentiate and say, well, this is a core or not a core feature, but start to see it as, you know, when a user is starting to use the product, that all of those things become core or really important to them. So I
Yeah.
kind of start to see that when I see results, and keep that in mind, just in a sense of it helps to say, okay, yeah, this might be technically this might not be in the core, but it's still important to someone. And so how does that fit into the overall
Mhm.
usage of the tool?
Yeah, no, I think that's really valuable point, because if we look at most of these things in this list, most of these are actually not core related per se, if we talk strictly about robot framework core. So I think also in the wider community there isn't probably a super like a good understanding what the robot framework core is, or kind of how we as foundation typically define it. But it's still giving a good understanding of what are the needs in the community and then which directions people maybe want to take it. Then there was a question about the pipe separated format. Most people don't have any issue deprecating that. There were some people saying that there will be issues, like 6%, and a couple of percent didn't understand or didn't say yes or no. But yeah, it can cause some issues to a very small amount of people, but the issues can be very big. So I leave that to core team to interpret it the way they see fit. What are the most relevant libraries for you? Again, word cloud here, so take it with such. So you can see browser library, Selenium library in two built-in libraries, database, Appium, some private libraries, stage library, request library. Yes, a lot of different things. Babot is there. Something what I can't read. But anyway, you can see many different libraries, but there's a lot of, let's say, web testing with browser and Selenium in the kind of very beginning, and request library as well there. Also Plotting UI is there. That's a new one. Good. Then we asked about kind of what libraries we should develop or need updating kind of most, and Appium library was there on top on many kind of responses. And also browser library would need some more love still. Obviously, it's very used. Request library, REST instance API. So that is a big use case. Metric dashboards, reporting tools. Still, people want more kind of dashboards. Again, if you are one of those people, do check out the dashboard from Team Recruit. You find it, for example, from the Robot Framework Slack announcements recently. Also, you can check it from there. Sorry, I can't. I don't have the exact GitHub project. Maybe somebody can link it there in the chat. But some messaging and integration libraries. That was at least from some people reported, still like a better parallel execution was mentioned, with kind of improved Puppet or something better in that front. AI integrations, LLMs integrated to robot framework somehow, AI testing, those kind of things. Image-based testing as well. They are lacking some maintenance. I think at least that is at least partly true. So would be nice to get more stuff done there. IDE support. So obviously robot code is kind of being further developed all the time. And I think the PyCharm support is also on the pipeline there, if not already there. So things are moving forward to a degree, but there are still many things we can do better than some core libraries. So here we should maybe modernize some of the built-in libraries still. And for example, the SSH libraries to a degree lacking some kind of contribution there and so forth. I more or less went it through, so there's still this short summary. So then next question is more about the robot framework compared to other tools, and if the respondees favor Robot Framework over the others or other way around. So yes, Robot Framework was obviously like highly favorable, open source model, natural language syntax, low code capabilities, powerful reporting, ease of use, Python extensibility were mentioned as good things, readability and maintainability, that is clean and readable syntax, flexibility and versatility was really liked with Robot Framework, keyword-driven structure, library supports, cross-platform usage, all kind of those things. And the community and ecosystem was also praised. Learning resources were mentioned. Some alternatives people saw was Cypress, Playwright, Python, PyTest, Test Complete, Test Cafe Catalan, so more of this like so some paid solutions at the end, for example. But in favor of Robot Framework, were roughly 94% of the attendees, 4% had some kind of a neutrality or kind of a no strong opinion whether pro or against Robot Framework, and 2% said yeah, I like something else. So I guess that also tells more about the respondees than necessarily Robot Framework itself. But so we have really captured, let's say, more heavy users and more favorable users in this kind of a survey than other way around. Would be really interesting to see what were the results if we had more people who are not in favor but still have used it for a couple of years to get more kind of a let's say maybe critical feedback or this kind of improvement ideas.
I was going to add there that, yeah, this is much more of I would call this much more of an internal survey within the Robot Framework community than a market survey that reaches out and goes through a lot of just testing channels or test automation channels in general. We do advertise it, but we really are kind of reaching and even a bit focused on kind of the internal community. So it's not surprising the favorability results. But it also is just good to hear from there. And I just, I kind of take that part of it as understanding who we are really kind of asking and what we're trying to get there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, indeed. There was many other mentions, but nothing that big that we have to go through now. I would now move on to the next section, which is participation within the Robot Framework community, unless there are any more questions on the ecosystem and Robot Framework itself. No. Let me zoom in a little bit. Maybe see something here. Okay, maybe you see something. Anyway, so this how active have you been using the forums mentioned here in the past 6 months? So we have 25 and 24 here on the screen. So very similar type of curves. So most people use forum, like not that many people use it daily or almost every day. Some use it kind of let's say sometimes once a month is the most frequent after not used. So I guess the frequency there is lower than in Slack, where we have like a kind of a reverse belt, or those who never use it, and then there are people who almost use it every day, and then everything in between. Then the mailing list is mainly not used, but some people still use it, some even daily. Stack Overflow, although it's not our official forum in any ways, is quite used as well. There is some decrease there. I'm wondering whether ChatGPT and other kind of tools there makes the difference. LinkedIn is well used. I would put it this way: some use it daily, some use it every 6 months or so, but most use it maybe once a week, or then not use it at all. That's the biggest category. Facebook is still being used by some people, although most do not use it. Many people do use the company internal channels. Some people either don't have or don't use them, but there is after the non-usage, there's a increasing frequency towards to almost daily use. YouTube is also somewhat used, somewhat strangely, the almost everyday users compared to 24 has been dropped, or the kind of bar is much lower. Not sure why, but regardless, there are users there in YouTube as well, even daily and monthly and so forth. Then some other channels which are not mentioned here are also used by some people.
Miikka, just a quick note on that. Actually, I think we added YouTube this year specifically as a called out one. Last year it was not part of the survey.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
Sorry, I missed that.
Yeah, for just general information for everybody, usually because we were trying to compare year over year, we usually try to keep the overall survey the same. And there are certain small changes. And I recall that's one that I made this year was that we had 2024 people writing in YouTube as a write-in value. And I said, oh, that should probably be a separate channel. So this year, 2025, that was one that was just a newly asked option in there.
Yes. And then there's a question about how well do you find the answers that you look for from the community channels that you do use. And here we can kind of see 3 years as well. So you can see that like 20% do find almost always what they are looking for or super well. Then some 56% find very well, like 4 out of 5. Then the rest is like mostly 3s and a couple of percentages on 2, and 8% doesn't find anything from anywhere. But yeah, fairly similar shapes every year. Slight increase, I guess, from kind of the previous year, but very slight in the kind of slight improvements on finding information, but
one of the things I'll note here is and if you look beyond the data sum and or into the data sum is that one of the things that I seem to notice is that the more years of experience someone has, usually their ability to find what they're looking for in one of the channels is actually lower. And in my mind, that kind of makes sense in the sense of, I'll do it. I have some very technical question, and I've seen other people that I know who have been using Robot Framework for a very long time ask a question in the channels, and usually those questions are highly specific, highly technical, and very kind of almost niche questions, and so it becomes a bit more harder to answer those questions because you are definitely dealing with much more of a unique situation, and so one of the things that we've been talking about, and I'll highlight the fact that Gerwin's here in this channel, is Gerwin is on our a working group that we have within the community. So the foundation has a whole set of working groups that works in different areas, and one of those areas is education. And Gerwin is one of the leads in that area is educating, and we're looking at how do we educate and provide documentation for the community and throughout the community, and also how do we provide documentation that's kind of continuous across different areas and also for different skilled people. So that's something that I think we recognize to a degree is that there are people who are beginners that are coming in. There are people who have intermediate experience, and then there's people who have expert experience. And still, how do we serve those parts of our community?
Yeah, that is very much true. Thanks, Ed. Then a question about improving the community channels. I think a couple of highlights here. So increase visibility and awareness. So not everybody knows things at all that we have these channels, better organization and structure, more separate discussion by topic. Well, we can always do better there in Slack. For example, cross-platform integration, so linking more forum and Slack, for example, or maybe even going beyond that to Stack Overflow, some other channels. Community-driven documentation and Q&A, so some curated answers. That is something that I hope our AI chatbot will help in the near future. Let's see. Encourage broader participation. So yes, we should still be better at getting more people to participate and helping out one another. Support beginners or returnees. So still we can do better guiding and even better resource finding, at least, if not better resources, probably both. And maintain active and friendly environment. So yeah, we can still be more lively and welcoming. I think moderation we have to a degree, but not very much, luckily. So let's put it this way: we haven't much needed moderation, so hence also we don't have much. Anyway, how do people participate in the community? So most people do this very small, so I would just read it for you. So most people do, so 74%, 75% do use one or more of the community forums as a source of information. 37% ask help in one of the, or have asked help in one of or more of the community forums. 30% help others in some of the forums. 15% write scripts for others. 24% roughly execute scripts from someone else. 16% reviews authors' results from robot framework executions. 20% write or contribute to private libraries. Then 13% write or contribute to public libraries, or almost 14%. 16%, almost 17% give feedback to library maintainers. 6% then contribute to robot framework core, and kind of 14% do not participate in the community at all. These are very similar numbers to last time. I will not go through the last time figures, but anyway, it's a fairly similar thing here. What I can see as very small sudden change is that there is a little bit more people who are not participating. So a couple of percentage change to a better direction, that only 14.6% do not participate in any way.
Something I just noticed looking at this now and hearing you talk is that actually I do see our second and third questions. I ask for help and I help others. The percentage of those two has actually gotten closer together. Overall decreased a little bit from last year, but last year there were a lot big separation between those two. And I know that's one of the things that I've been talking about for a couple of years now, is trying to get people that if you ask a question, answer a question type of thing. So that was actually something I've just saw that for the first time right now, and it's like, oh, hey, looky there. So
and how was it? Form a team, build a team.
Form a team, build a team. Yeah, there's a lot of those sayings I've said over the years. Yeah, get some help, give some help. It's that kind of that interaction that makes open source such a successful thing. So
exactly. Yeah. Then we asked about if people have stopped using a robot framework for a significant amount of time, typically it's due to job or role changes, client or project tool choices, or switching temporarily to manual testing using other tools or something else. So not happy about robot framework is typically not why people switch. Then we asked about if people have contributed to the community and ecosystem, and what factors enable and encourages those people to contribute. So those who mentioned that they are contributing somehow, and how can we increase the contribution here? So here are a couple of main points. So friendly and supportive community is the most cited motivator, open source spirit and culture, clear and easy contribution paths, responsiveness and maintainer engagement, multiple contribution avenues, real life interaction and employer support. So for example, some hours from your company, recognition and community engagement, like in events like RoboCon. Good, moving on. If you haven't contributed yet, what is kind of hindering you to do that? Lack of time is the biggest thing, lack of experience or confidence, not knowing where to get started. People are new to robot framework, lack of company support or policy constraints, just understandable in some settings, lack of motivation or immediate need. Well, not all people are up for it, that's understandable as well. Now moving on to the next section, unless there are any questions. Oh, in a wider sense about community or anything around that, maybe? No. Then we had a couple of questions about the foundation role. Again, sorry about the font, I will read it for you. So these are kind of statements. Some of them are more true than others. So we have a couple of tricks there. So that is also to kind of test how well people actually understand the role of the foundation. Not to really have an exam per se, but more to understand like what do we do well and where can we improve. So the foundation organizes robot framework conferences. Yes, 97% of the respondees are correct. That is something we do. The foundation does not sell robot framework consultancy, so 10% had no clue about that. So that gives an indication that they are completely not understanding the role of the foundation. The foundation finance supports ecosystem projects. 65% knows that is true. So we can still do better in that front to get more word about it out. The foundation finance supports community platforms. 53% knows that. So that is something we do. The foundation decides what goes into the core. This is a little bit, I would say, politics. It is to a degree true and to a degree not true. So this is probably not a very good question, but I guess it gives a sentiment of how people feel what the foundation is doing. So we do have some oversight, but we also give very high freedom to Pekka and the lead developer, as lead developer and the core team there. The foundation answers robot framework related questions in the community. When this was were asked, that was very much untrue, because we haven't ever had any official way that we as foundation answer any questions, but it's the community answering, and that is still mainly true. Although now with the newly launched ambassador program, you could see it that way, that the ambassadors are representing a foundation, and hence this could be true for the future. The foundation finances supports the core development. That is very much true. Unfortunately, there was still almost 24% that missed that fact. So they do not understand the core purpose of Robot Framework Foundation, and that tells me that we can do better. Yeah, so compared to last year, just as a ballpark figure, I think this was shuffled. More people from the respondees did know that the foundation finances supports the core development. That was almost 90% last time. This time it was 77%. So I guess the respondees were a different group and knew less about the foundation. In 23, I guess it was 78. So somewhere there in between. No, a bit higher than 25. Good. Then 47% are not foundation members, 40% are, and 11% do not know. So there is slight increase there compared to last year. Then 10% were interested in joining the foundation, and then roughly the rest were divided between not wanting more information or not caring. Sorry, wanting more information or not caring. And for non-foundation members, so this is about how likely they are to recommend the Robot Framework Foundation. And so again, this Net Promoter Score. So if we look at the non-foundation members, the NPS was 20.5. This was the first time we asked this question from the non-members. So there's no past for kind of members. The same question means that the NPS was 56. Past year it was 37, and the year before it was 76. Here you don't see it, but here we have something like 17 responses versus now we have something like, I don't know, 52. Oh, you can see it from here. So they are really not comparable because the amount of respondees were just very low in 23. So I guess you kind of, regardless, take this with a kind of direction that it is a pretty good direction where we are at. Then what the foundation should do. So a couple of statements about how we are doing and kind of where we should, for example, spend our efforts and money. So whether we are performing our role well. So you can see that most people do agree or strongly agree that we are performing our role well. Some kind of increase into strong opinion here, but still a similar shape than last time. Then the next kind of 4 questions are more of questions about how we use our resources and money. So first is, should we use more kind of resources to international expansion? Then it's about, should we use more resources to core development? Then should we use more resources to ecosystem development? And then should we use more resources to community development? And basically you can see that all of these are kind of mostly neutral or kind of going a bit more towards yes, we should. But obviously we have a certain amount of budget and resources, and sometimes taking from one bucket means that there is less in that bucket, and even though we can put it into the other bucket, it's so these are kind of indicators of where we should use our resources, and based on this you could say that the international expansion to these respondees were more important than, for example, more resources to community or even core development. The ecosystem development was also fairly important, but there's like no super strong like you must do this, but more of a slight preference towards using a bit more resources to international development and kind of a ecosystem compared to core and community. And the last question is, are we positioned well for the long term? Here, like very big majority agrees that yes, we are. Some are strongly agreeing and some are being more neutral, or a couple even pessimistic. Any questions? I think that was also the last question. So any question from the survey as total from anybody? No? Then I would also thank you for your time and open discussion. I will, however, close the YouTube stream now. So I will say thank you to everybody who was on YouTube, and have a great time, everybody.